So today I wanted to show you how to make these really beautiful dangles for like keychains from the flatback jewels that you can get. Like mine came from the Dollar Tree and from Hobby Lobby. And basically you just cut out of cardboard about a 1/2 inch wide pieces, and then it's about, I would say, 1.25 inches long. And then now I'm going to paint them with this darker paint. So I happen to have like an old paint from Prima that is like a dark purple. It's kind of like a purple black. So I'm going to use that paint. I've done this before because if you use a dark color paint, then it will almost like disappear. So we're going to be adding the jewels to this, but if you have like a neutral dark color paint, that should work. So I'm going to paint the cardboard piece. So what I've done is I've cut like a 1/2 inch wide by, let's say, 1.25 inches long, and then I've rounded the top. And I've done this just so that this piece kind of disappears when we're done with it. And I'm going to paint the top of it, and then when this dries, I'm going to paint the sides and then also the back side so that the whole piece is like this dark brown or neutral color. And I'm doing that just so that in the future we won't see that. So now I'm taking my crocodile, and I happen to have like 2 of them. So I keep it set to the 1/8 inch size, and then my other one I keep set to the larger size, and that way I don't have to be changing the tips of them at all. So I do like doing that. And then my one that's like this smaller size, I have it marked so that I know that. I just find that I use my crocodile more when I know I don't have to like switch it. So I basically have taken that dried piece of cardboard, and then I've glued around the hole, and now I'm putting in that 1/8 inch eyelet, and I'm going to go ahead and set that. So I'm putting the glue in just to give it like an extra layer for it to stay put. Since this will be in a keychain, it's going to get a lot of wear. And since we're just putting this on the cardboard, I just want to make sure that it has like, the ability to stay put. I don't want it to be ripping out of the cardboard. So now I'm just going to take that same paint, and since mine is kind of like a bright metal color, then I'm just going to hit it lightly with the same paint. And this is tough paint. Like I tried to clean it off, and it was actually even hard to clean up. So this is a nice sturdy paint here. So if it wears off this ring, I'm not going to worry about it, but I kind of like having it like a matchy color here. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this, and then I'm going to put a pin through it just to make sure that that hole is still intact. So I suppose you could do that after it dries, but I was just doing it right now when the paint is wet. So I'm going to do that to all of these bases. I'm going to go ahead and I'm punching the hole for an 1/8 inch eyelet with my crocodile, and then I'm going to glue all the holes, and then I'm going to set the eyelets in all of the holes. So I'm using the small eyelets, but you don't have to. You could use larger ones, but you might have to make your base here a little bit larger. So I'm just right now showing you like these 5 bases, but you can see I've already done like a whole plate full of these. So what I also did do is when I cut these cardboard pieces, I kind of like pre-matched them with the flatback jewels that I had, so that if I needed to make any of them smaller, then I could do that. But you do want to give yourself enough space at the top to set the eyelet and have like enough cardboard around it that it's not super fragile. Because at the end of this process, like, you won't really see this base at all. So it's okay to give it like a little bit of extra height to it, just so you can get that eyelet in there correctly. So as I said, I'm just trying to glue around all of these holes, and that will keep hopefully these eyelets in place and just kind of strengthen that cardboard. So you can buy things that you can glue onto the back of jewels to give them like a jump ring, but I like this idea because I have the base like all the way through. it's easy to glue these jewels to like cardboard. So I'm just going to let these dry really well. So that's probably the longest part of this whole process, is just like letting this dry in all the different stages. And I am using art glitter glue for this. But I did think about, and maybe if I do these in the future, I have quite a stash, so but if I do them again in the future, then I will maybe use a glue gun. Like I have a glue gun that I can use like Gorilla glue sticks. So that might be fun, because then you could glue these elements on and then it would dry really quickly. But I think the longest part of this process is just kind of doing the different steps and then walking away and letting it dry really thoroughly. So now I have all 5 of these eyelets in. I have everything painted, and then I'm just going to let this dry for a while. So when you're picking the jewels, you just want to make sure you have 2 that match. So I was pulling everything out in pairs, just making sure that I had 2 of the same jewel in the same color. So you could use different colors, but honestly it looks better to just use the same color. So now I'm going to go ahead and take these pieces. They are dry. And then I'm just going to start gluing on these jewels. Now these 1/8" eyelets, I could get them through different keychains. But like I said, if you want to use larger ones, you can definitely do that as well. And the other thing I like doing is I like putting keychains through these eyelets, like the key rings. And you can buy those by like the bag from Hobby Lobby or Michael's. I got mine from Joann's. So I have like a real small size, and I also have a larger size. But the other thing I was doing is taking like embroidery thread and threading those through these eyelets. And then I would tie like a bow through a key ring. So that was easier to kind of thread these with embroidery thread, and then be able to add that to any kind of keychain or whatever. So you can use different things. You can use ribbon, whatever you can get through those holes. And that way, if you can just get these onto one key ring, then at that point you can use that to, add all different things together. So now I'm adding these different shapes on just to the first side, and then I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes, and then I'll go back and add the shape to the back side. So you'll see like my cardboard bases, some of them are different sizes from each other, but that's because I matched them against the jewels I was going to use. And so some of them I just made them a little bit smaller, because like hearts, that heart, like I'm trying to get it right to the bottom of that base, but I just want to have, if I can help it, have none of that base showing like outside of the jewel. And you can see I'm putting glue on pretty heavily here. So I was looking at Michael's the other day to see if they sell charms like this that have like the 2-sided jewels on them, but I didn't really see anything. So that's one reason why I like doing these, because these are a little bit larger than what you could buy like in a bead. But these are pretty to mix with beads and mix with other things as well. But I couldn't quite find anything that looked like this at Michael's. So And when you add this to like a bag or a keychain, it is pretty striking. So that's why I like making these myself. And it's a good way to use up these jewels. Like I have bags of these like flatback jewels. So it is a really nice way to use these. So now I'm just adding like that second side to all of these, and I'm just making sure that they're very matched up. So when I first do the glue, they're slipping and sliding a little bit, so I'm just gonna go back and double check as they're drying that nothing is like shifting out of place, because they look the best when they're like really matched front to back. And then since we have like this cardboard piece in the middle, it makes them kind of like these chunky beads, which is really, it ends up looking really nice. So I'm not worrying about like all the extra glue squishing out or anything like that, because they dry really nice looking. So as I said, I'm adding a lot of glue to these just to let them dry. But you can imagine if you're using like a hot glue gun, this process would go quickly. So now I have like a whole batch of these jewels, and I basically just threaded some through a key ring, and then I did some with just like thread and tied a bow, and then I've added a little bit of seam binding to that as well. But it just gives me like all these little dangles that I can kind of add to each other. And then in this case, I've added a little chain with a lobster claw on it, and that way I can just keep adding more and more. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope this is like a useful project for you, something that you can do to add dangles to your keychains as well. And so I hope this is something that you liked. So thank you so much. I hope that you like and subscribe. I really appreciate that, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.